Disney's DuckTales reboot is a show filled with adventure, mystery, and daring-do, trotting a beloved cast of characters across the globe while simultaneously winking to decades of comic book history. It's genuinely great, and consistently leaves fans of Disney Ducks wanting more. And if you want more, this episode delivers. This is the Golden Lagoon of White Agony Plains. One of the most common complaints I've seen levied against Disney's DuckTales reboot isn't about the show's animation style, the story changes, or the cast, but about Uncle Scrooge. More specifically, it's about how fans want to see more of Uncle Scrooge. So far, Scrooge, Donald, Launchpad, and the kids have been on adventures under the ocean, in distant lands, and on islands of legend. But most of the actual adventuring has been done by Huey, Dewey, Louie, and Webby, not the adults. In this episode, that finally changes. In a story that harkens back to the old comics, we finally see the head of the McDuck clan embark on an adventure that defines his character. A story that embodies the very essence of what it is to be Scrooge McDuck. Stealing cocktail weenies.
These cocktail weenies are in Glomgold's dollar.
Aren't you rich?
And also going on a big gold rush adventure through the Klondike with an iconic comic book character. But we'll get to that in a minute. What's important is that this is an episode all about Scrooge. His history, his ambition, his integrity as a hero, and his mettle as an adventurer. That's something we haven't seen in DuckTales yet. At least not until now. Scrooge has mostly just been a chaperone for his family into the world of adventure. But this time, the old bird himself is front and center. And not just him as an adventurer either, but him as a whole character. Hence, cocktail weenies.
Aren't you rich? Why do you need free food?
I didn't get rich by wasting money. I got rich by besting my enemies. Stock up, lads.
Although most of this episode is about adventure, this moment is just as important to me. Scrooge and the kids are at this gala being hosted by Flintheart Glumgold, and the boys just can't figure out why their Uncle Scrooge would bother to go to a party hosted by his worst enemy. The reason is simple: free food. Until now, the Scrooge we've seen in the DuckTales reboot has been a little less stingy with money than the versions we see in the comics. So this little moment of absurd frugality is a nice nod to the original tightwad of Duckburg. In fact, the entire episode is kind of a giant tribute to the Scrooge McDuck we all know from the comics. This story looks back at his history, teasingly questions his long life of adventure, and dips its toe into Scrooge's complex backstory. And all on its own, that's the making of a great DuckTales adventure. But the Golden Lagoon of White Agony Plains takes it a step further by making the entire story revolve around a beloved fan-favorite character, Glittering Goldie O'Gilt. Goldie and Scrooge go way back, both in their own story and in the original Uncle Scrooge comic books. Back in 1953, Goldie first appeared in the classic Uncle Scrooge story Back to the Klondike, where the old miser suddenly remembered a debt he never settled, one with compound interest. The comic takes him back to his glory days during the gold rush and introduces us to the only girl he was ever smitten with, Goldie O'Gilt. It's a reunion that's both sweet and hilarious, and she's often cited as Scrooge's long-lost love. Even so, their relationship has always been complicated by misunderstandings and distrust. I mean, they first meet during the gold rush when Goldie herself tries to steal from Scrooge McDuck. That complicated history isn't totally covered in this episode, but its atmosphere is absolutely present. When Goldie first makes her appearance in the DuckTales reboot, it's to a Scrooge who's overcome with ambivalence.
Your ex? As in ex-girlfriend?
Ex-partner, ex-rival, ex-everything.
The two meet at Glumgold's party, dance, and tease each other about their past and their adventures. And the dance isn't just a social activity either, but a battle of their wills, one that ultimately ends with Goldie finding a way to drag Scrooge back to his past, to the gold rush and the one adventure they never finished together, the search for the Golden Lagoon of White Agony Plains. This takes the two of them back to Dawson City, the gold rush town where they originally met.
Gold rush? Wait, how old are you?
That's a good question, Huey. Ever since the DuckTales reboot started, I've been wondering how the show is going to reconcile its modern 2017-2018 setting with Scrooge's history. Scrooge McDuck made his first fortune during the gold rush, during the 1850s, How could he still be alive in 2018 if he made his fortune over 150 years ago? And how does Goldie look so young? Well, the episode actually has an answer for that. Well, sort of.
You're looking younger than the last time I saw you.
Found a fountain of youth in Wrongwhy. You?
Stuck in a timeless demon dimension.
Which one, Pandemonium or Demogorgona?
After all, with all the adventuring Scrooge does, it kinda makes sense that he'd stumble across some magical means that would extend his life one way or another. We even see one of these in the episode. As the story dives into Scrooge and Goldie's history, it gives us a condensed version of their backstory. In the comics, it's implied they shared an unrequited love for each other that grew over the years, and in the show, they symbolize that by encasing the two bitter rivals in a glacier. It's thick ice only melting as their hearts warm to each other. Even so, it took 5 years for those hearts to warm, presumably extending their life just that much longer. And what I love about this is not only does it provide an example of why they have both led such long lives, it also makes it obvious they have a pretty deep relationship. During the episode, they actually have it out with each other and bear their feelings openly. And the weight of their history can be felt in that conversation, even if the ice metaphor rushed the actual backstory a bit. But it's that heartfelt character interaction that makes this episode so endearing. Later in their adventure, the two face off with a pickaxe sword fight, and I won't get into too much detail about it, but it mirrors that same competitive but caring intensity we saw in the beginning of the episode. This isn't a fight so much as it is a dance, and how they perform that dance speaks volumes about how Scrooge and Goldie really feel about each other. I'll leave the rest of this episode and its spoilers to speak for itself, but there's a lot more to get out of this episode than just Scrooge and Goldie's relationship. Not only does it have a ton of great Glomgold moments, including this warped look at how he sees himself, but it also has a fantastic gag about Scrooge's footwear as he carves his own spats out of a pair of hiking boots. It also has what could be my favorite triplet joke of the series yet.
What is it? A cursed villain? A villainous curse? Man, I hate going third.
Oh, and if you're a Disneyland fan, there's a fantastic, fast nod to the Rainbow Caverns, a Frontierland attraction that preceded Big Thunder Mountain. It's kinda cool. Either way, this episode was a real winner. It's an unashamed love letter to the original comics, an adventure that finally puts the focus on Scrooge McDuck, and a short love story with just enough mystery to keep it interesting and believable. I loved this one. That's it for now though. If you want to see more DuckTales reviews, talk about cartoons, or whatever else I wind up doing with this channel, don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons, leave a comment if you want, and just generally hang out. Either way, thanks for watching as always, and take it easy, Internet.